Well, I think Pope Francis has actually been remarkably Marian. I've been really surprised at how much he mentions Our Lady and recourse to her.
Especially Our Lady Untier of Knots.
Exactly.
That's his favorite devotion to Our Lady, based on an icon of Our Lady in Austria, I think.
Is it Austria or Germany?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it could be.
And I think it's an incredible devotion for our age, because so many of us have knots within our families that aren't, it's not just one small problem, but it's layer upon layer upon layer of these different generations of brokenness. And so I think that novena is incredibly powerful, and I think it's great that he promotes that. But I haven't heard of him say, you know, encouraging one particular day, maybe you know of, to promote the Rosary. But again, he's constantly referring us to her and suggesting that we have recourse to her.
Yeah, and well, there's the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, which is on the anniversary of the Battle of Lepanto. And also St. John Paul II wrote his wonderful letter, Rosaria Mariae, the Rosary of Mary, which introduced the 5 new luminous mysteries, but also gave a very profound teaching on the Rosary. We went through that here on my show, Threshold of Hope, when it came out. It's been some years
12
now.
years or something.
A little longer.
15, maybe.
Yeah, more like 15 years, 14 years. And you can look those up. That's one of the things that we want to do. And there have been a number of organizations that have also done international rosaries.
Right, the Blue Army.
Blue Army does that. And a number of other groups where they'll have people around the world praying the rosary at the same time on the internet, and a group in Africa leads, then a group in South America and Australia and so on. She's right. We need to get international praying of the rosary.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, and Poland just gave us a great example.
Yeah, tell us about that.
They prayed at the Rosary on the borders of the country. They gathered. It was hundreds of thousands, maybe even a million people gathered on the borders of the country to pray for peace for Europe and for the survival of Europe. Really, it was really dramatic. Again, praying also about Islamic terrorism and all of those kinds of issues.
They were celebrating Mass, I think, in Czestochowa and some other places. At the same time, people all around, surrounding the whole border of Poland, praying the Rosary, people in the plazas. These are the kinds of things we want to encourage.
Yes, without a doubt.
Yeah. I think Ireland is also going to do this. That's convenient. It's an island, so you can get the whole border there.
Oh, that you cover it all.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of dioceses are also consecrating themselves to Our Lady.
Yes, they are.
That's another thing I've been seeing a lot of. I think last year there were 2, maybe Providence and one in South Carolina, and now more and more are doing it this year as well. So it's on the
I know the Archbishop of San Francisco and a number of other bishops did the same. So that's a good thing. And this is one of the things that you're bringing up as this Marian option, when there are forces in the culture trying to remove the option for God, keep God out. That that coach, I think, football coach in Texas, who was kneeling by himself, and he got fired. But then, the players joined him, and then the players from the other team, and then the crowd joined him. Then they fired him. They can't allow prayer and silence, you know. So it's this is where this option is very important, I think.
Right. Well, and I think you bring up the good point even about this idea of silence, because this is one thing that's also problematic. I think some people struggle with the Rosary because they find it very boring. And I address that in the book as far as what happens when you're praying the Rosary, and how it's almost like a pilgrimage, that the person that you were at the beginning of the Rosary is not the person that you are when you finish the Rosary, and these subtle transformations happen. But it's also, of course, prayer, and God is going to speak to us in very subtle ways during that Rosary, that there's going to be fruit from it that we see when we persevere in our own lives and beyond.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really loved that you made as a point in the book is that the rosary is a development of the creed. We say the Apostles' Creed at the start of every rosary. And then going through the mysteries is unpacking, unfolding the creed. That's a brilliant insight.
Yeah, no, and it's really all about the life of Christ and seeing how much, it's dramatic when you realize that Christ is at the center of all those, and then of course Our Lady accompanies him through them. But it's just incredible to see the two of them together. And even Blessed Alain de la Roche made the comment at one point. He was one of these people that had locutions of Jesus, and Jesus said to him, "If only people would pray my rosary." And so it was a clear indicator that he doesn't just see it, it's not just his mom's rosary, but in fact it's his life, and we're experiencing his life in a very rich way when we're meditating upon those mysteries of the rosary.
When the other things that I liked that you had, I used it in a sermon about calling people to say the rosary at a church just a couple weeks ago in Montana. And one of the things I love is how you describe Our Lady. And my dad was a vet of World War II, and so we had the highest respect for General Eisenhower and Patton and the other, Omar Bradley, all those generals. But we have in Our Lady, you call her a 12-star general.
Right.
Where did you get that idea from?
Yeah, well, it came from a priest, very wise man. But yeah, I think also just looking at her role geopolitically, I love one of my favorite apparitions, and I only used apparitions that were approved by the Vatican in this book. I didn't want to have to go back and change things should things change, and I knew also it would be way too long of a book if I covered, you know, the 2,500 reported apparitions of Our Lady. But that's, you know, the miracle hunter's job. But nevertheless, the apparition of Pont-Main, where Our Lady appeared to a family, and only the children could see her. This family knew that the Prussians were invading their town the next day, and she didn't say anything to them.
This was in the 1870s?
Exactly, 1871, I think it was.
Yeah.
And she didn't say anything to them, but she held up a sign saying something to the effect of, "Jesus has heard your prayer," and she's called Our Lady of Hope. But in the official documents from the Prussian army, because the next day they were supposed to invade, they didn't invade, and the official documents actually say there was an invisible Madonna in the road and we could not advance. And that ended up, you know, leading to the crumbling of their whole advance, and the Prussians left France, you know, indefinitely. But that was the end of that battle because of this invisible Madonna that was blocking their road. So, yeah, she's had very significant geopolitical influence, and we often think of her in very saccharine terms as very sweet and pious. But when you look at what she's done, I mean, she's tough.
Well, even at another great battle, when Vienna had been surrounded by a large Turkish army of a couple 100,000 soldiers. Yep. And King Jan Sobieski came in.
The Great Pole, yep.
Yeah, he unfurled the banner of Our Lady, and his cavalry just attacked the Turks, and they just fled.
Yeah.
They just fled.
Yeah, it was over before it began, really. And this is another case where you have the soldiers marching to Vienna, praying their rosaries as they're marching to the city. And so it's another one of those great rosary victories that we see protecting Europe.
I think that even started, that gathered at Częstochowa.
They did.
And then they went from Częstochowa, the shrine of Our Lady, to save the people of Vienna from this Turkish invasion.
Exactly.
So it would have been, you know, catastrophic for the rest of Europe. You know, if Vienna fell, the rest of Europe would fall. So this was a tremendous battle in which that banner of Our Lady as our 12-star general, you know,
and
led them.
The great spoils of that, I mean, the fact that they left so quickly, there were all kinds of things left by the Turks, including coffee and croissants. And so this is where coffee and croissants ended up being introduced. So
I like it better already.
Yeah, it's a good battle. Yeah, exactly.
I love coffee.
Yeah.
All right, we want you to take a look at the Marian Option, God's Solution for a Civilization in Crisis by Dr. Carrie Gress.